We thought we'd seen it all, but boy were we wrong. Buckle up for your weekly dose of dashcam chaos, and let's get started. Aiden was driving his Mazda 3 early one morning when the Ram pickup ahead of him made a left turn. Not seeing any oncoming traffic, Aiden signaled before following the pickup. Did you see that black car coming? Aiden sure didn't, mainly because the driver had his headlights turned off. When police arrived, Aiden showed them this footage and they agreed that he'd had no chance to see the oncoming car. Officers cited the other driver for failing to have proper lighting and didn't cite Aiden at all. But that didn't stop the insurance companies from finding Aiden 80% responsible for the collision anyway. Eventually, Aiden's insurance provider had the claim sent to arbitration, where the other driver was finally found fully responsible. In spite of the ruling in Aiden's favor, his insurance premiums still skyrocketed. The collision is also still on his driving record as an at-fault collision, so he can't even change insurance providers to escape the consequences of the other driver's carelessness. Over a year later, he's still screwed. Let this be another reminder to make sure your headlights are on while driving at night. It's especially difficult to tell if you're in a well-lit city with street lighting, so don't ever assume. Double check. Claude was driving down a New York highway when a VW SUV sped past him before trying to thread the needle between a Chevy pickup and another vehicle, and failing. When the VW clipped the front of the pickup, the impact sent it spinning off the road and rolling onto its side. Incredibly, even though this happened at over 70 miles per hour, nobody involved was seriously hurt. Claude told us the Chevy driver had just bought the pickup brand new 10 minutes before this collision occurred. He told Claude the truck's automatic braking activated, leaving it with a scuff mark on a plastic panel as the only damage. Cliff was waiting at a traffic light when one turning driver decided to risk running the light as it turned red, rather than waiting for the light to complete another cycle. We can tell their light was red because Cliff's turned green while they were still completing their turn. Sadly for them, the driver of the white pickup next to Cliff's Nissan Rogue also noticed. That pickup was actually an unmarked police vehicle, and the officer took off after the red light runner to give them some instant justice. Cliff told us that as he continued, he knew he had to send his footage to Wham Bam. Did you know every one of the videos we feature is sent in by subscribers? If you have dashcam footage to share, send it to us using the link in the description and you might see it in a future episode. This subscriber is a police officer who was on his way to work one morning already in uniform as he drove his personal vehicle. When another driver cut him off, forcing a rear-end collision, the other driver didn't want him to call the state police, worried that troopers would automatically take our subscriber's side. Our subscriber did the right thing and called the state police anyway. It's a good thing that he did because our subscriber told us the other driver lied to his insurance provider about what happened. He denied he'd been speeding and simply told them he'd been rear-ended by a police officer. After our subscriber sent them his dashcam footage, they accepted full liability and paid to fix his Ford Explorer. This subscriber watched a biker make an illegal left turn from a lane only allowed to turn right, dangerously cutting in front of him. When our subscriber decided not to let the biker get away with this illegal maneuver, the biker raised the stakes by passing him again more than once. Fully committed to recklessness, he passed other traffic illegally as he sped off. Our subscriber told us the biker smacked his side view mirror off camera, but thankfully he was able to replace it with a $14 used mirror from a wrecking yard. He figures the biker experienced more pain than he did. Robert is a trucker who was driving his Kenworth T680 when another truck driver pulled out in front of him while he was going 65 miles per hour. Robert had to swerve completely off the highway and onto the rough shoulder to avoid colliding with the other semi. Thankfully, he was able to keep his truck upright and get it back on the road. Steven was taking his aunt home from a medical appointment the day before Thanksgiving when a Honda driver pulled out of a parking lot and crossed the entire road in front of his Dodge Challenger. When Steven stopped and spoke with the other driver, she said she hadn't seen his car coming when she exited the parking lot. Thankfully, nobody was injured in the collision and both vehicles remained drivable. Repairing Steven's Challenger ended up costing over $10,000 and taking about 4 weeks. Thankfully, insurance paid for everything. By the way, this is the second time Steven has been featured on Wham Bam Dashcam. His previous submission was also a bad Civic driver, but they were even worse, and they paid for it. We'll put a link to that episode at the end of this one in case you missed it. Dan was waiting in traffic when an oncoming driver got ready to exploit the gap in front of his Chevy Blazer. He did his best to close the gap so the other driver wouldn't dangerously cut across lanes they couldn't even see, but the other driver wasn't dissuaded. They turned through traffic to reach a driveway, cutting across a total of 4 lanes. And the only thing that kept them safe from a collision was blind luck. Dan did the right thing by closing the gap, but some drivers insist on creating dangerous conditions for themselves and others. Remember, you don't have to yield to traffic turning across your lane to reach a driveway. Leaving a gap isn't courteous, it's dangerous. Close the gap. Felipe was driving on I-75 between Miami and Naples when an SUV driving slowly in the travel lane with its hazard lights flashing prompted another SUV driver to switch to the passing lane. Another SUV driver who wasn't paying attention slammed on their brakes before swerving around the slow-moving SUV, barely avoiding a collision with it before crashing into the median barrier and briefly going up on 2 wheels. Felipe didn't tell us what the results of the collision were, but it doesn't look like anyone was seriously injured, and thankfully, no other vehicles were involved. This video is a perfect example of why it's never safe to scroll on your phone while driving. You never know what might happen, and you may only have seconds to react to changing circumstances. Remember, boredom won't kill you, but distraction might. You'll have plenty of time to watch brain rot after your drive, but you have to survive it first. Jason was driving his Ford Bronco on a road with a 50-mile-per-hour speed limit when a van driver suddenly pulled away from a stop sign to cross the road ahead of him. Both Jason and a Subaru driver had to slam on their brakes to avoid colliding with the van after the driver failed to yield. This time, paying attention saved the day. Cheryl was driving down a Virginia highway when she witnessed a crazy collision up ahead. It's hard to see exactly what happened, but what we can see is that an SUV rear-ended a car before flipping onto its roof and sending the car slamming into a concrete barrier. Cheryl stopped and helped the SUV driver out of her vehicle, then waited with her until first responders arrived. Thankfully, she wasn't injured by the collision, and Cheryl was able to provide her with a copy of this footage. Nicole was driving down a road in California and about to pass a Model S when the driver revealed themselves to be a Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
When the Tesla driver decided to change lanes, they didn't seem to mind that doing so would force Nicole to slam on her brakes and swerve to avoid getting sideswiped. Nicole pointed out that her red Nissan Murano is hard to miss. Thankfully, she was able to avoid hitting the Tesla or the curb before continuing on her way to work. She told us this was the closest call she's ever had while driving. Cameron watched a pickup driver pull past a stop sign to make a left turn, only to get obliterated by a garbage truck. Everyone understands that garbage trucks are heavy vehicles that can't stop on a dime, right? Okay, just checking. Thankfully, Cameron told us he saw both drivers exit their vehicles safely and neither was seriously injured. Cameron called 911 to report the collision, then waited for a deputy to arrive before giving him a copy of his dashcam footage. He also provided a copy to the garbage truck driver, whose supervisor also responded. Eurus was on her way home from work when she slowed down for a bend notorious for wrecks caused by speeding drivers. As it turned out, her concern was well placed. An oncoming car crossed the center line as it sped toward the curve, and Eurus slammed on her brakes and laid on her horn in an effort to avoid a collision. A guardrail prevented her from swerving out of the car's path. Thankfully, this alerted the inattentive driver enough to get them back on their side of the road. This speeding driver only caused a frightening close call. Allie was on her way home from work when a pickup driver turned wide, ending up in her lane and clipping the front bumper cover of her Buick Encore. If you missed the sign and road markings indicating that Allie's lane was allowed to turn right, you weren't the only one. Evidently, the pickup driver missed them too. He should have turned into the closest available lane, but he didn't. Both drivers stopped and inspected the damage to their vehicles. Allie told us the pickup driver didn't realize her lane was allowed to turn and was confused about what had happened. He didn't believe her, so he drove all the way back around to see for himself before coming back and exchanging information with her. Ethan was driving down an interstate highway when a car passed his F-150. See if you can tell what object was in the road before the car turned it into splintered wreckage. Ethan thinks it could have been a chair or a wooden box, but we can't tell even after slowing the video down and analyzing it frame by frame. What do you think it was? Both drivers stopped to check for damage to their vehicles. Incredibly, Ethan's pickup wasn't even scratched. He provided a copy of his dashcam footage to the other driver in case they wanted it for an insurance claim. Abdul was driving down a highway when he spotted the driver of an SUV backing up after missing their exit. Now, how could this possibly go wrong? A pickup driver didn't notice the reversing SUV until it was too late to avoid colliding with it. You know what they say, bad drivers never miss their exits. Justin was waiting to make a left turn, yielding to oncoming traffic, when his light turned yellow, then red while he was still in the intersection. Watch what happened when he went to complete his turn. When Justin realized an oncoming Honda SUV wasn't stopping for the red light, he slammed his brakes to avoid a head-on collision. He told us he could see that the Honda driver was on her phone with 3 kids riding with her. Justin provided a copy of his dashcam footage to the California Highway Patrol, but he doesn't know if the SUV driver was ever contacted or held accountable. Thankfully, no contact was made with Justin's Hyundai Palisade. Hunter slammed on his brakes when the SUV ahead of him stopped for a minivan turning very slowly into a driveway, but the driver of the Ford Bronco behind him didn't stop before slamming into Hunter's Camry. The resulting damage from the rear-end collision totaled Hunter's Camry. Thankfully, nobody was injured by the impact, and the other drivers stopped to exchange information. Hunter replaced his Camry with a Jeep Cherokee. EJ was running errands when party lights in the distance prompted him to pull over. What followed was a stream of not 1, not 2, not 36, but 37 police vehicles. At least, that's how many he counted. I didn't feel like double-checking. Don't forget to watch Steven's previous submission of a Honda going off-road before smashing into a guardrail. Or watch this impatient driver try to pass highway traffic before taking an SUV with him into a median barrier. Subscribe before making your choice, and we'll be back next week with more.
Wham! Bam! We got a Patreon man. Please support the show.